Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Play On podcast. This is the hurling edition. And what a weekend of hurling we had. A really high scoring week across all the games. Excellent individual performances and excellent team performances. A contrast to the previous weeks of hurling where there was a lot of frees. All the games this weekend were really open and really entertaining. I have Luke here with me to discuss it again. Luke, what did you make of the weekend?
Oh yeah, it was exactly as you were saying there. It was really entertaining kind of week, and a few of the games kind of really lived up to kind of our expectations, particularly the first game that we're going to go into here.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. That first game is Galway against Waterford, a replay of the All-Ireland final of 2017. Finished Galway 4 goals and 28 points, Waterford 3 goals and 23 points. A really free-flowing game. There weren't many frees in this one. Both teams clearly looking for goals. It was a ridiculously high-scoring game. Standout performances, Brian Concannon with 2 goals and 2 points. Conor Whelan with 6 points. Joe Canning moved into the full forward line. He ended up with 1 goal and 8 points. Just a brilliant performance from Galway. Good performance from some Waterford players as well. Caleb Lyons, especially with 5 points from the half-back line. Desi Hutchinson and Shane Bennett also impressed. What did you make of this game?
Yep, absolutely. I think it was an interesting kind of start. You saw straight away Waterford with great goals through Jack Prendergast. Kind of looked like they were going to pull away. They were 7 points up at one stage. And then Galway just kind of completely took over after a water break in the first half. And it was, a lot of people were kind of saying kind of exhibition kind of feel to the game, like not much defending going on. But I think I really enjoyed it. And like you pointed out already, the likes of the inside forwards in particular, you look at Concannon, Whelan and Desi Hutchinson, they were all completely on top and racked up some absolutely huge tallies, really.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And Waterford in particular, like they've always had really talented forwards. You know, I've always talked about how much I rate Stephen Bennett, Austin Gleeson as well. And Galway, we know how good their forward line is as well. So this game was always set up to be a cracker. And what struck me was how much the pendulum kind of swung in this game. Waterford started really well. Jack Prendergast scored a goal very early on. And Waterford ended up 7 points in front. And then Galway just took over from there and they looked really impressive. Another interesting thing was Dahi Burke was playing at centre half back. We know how good he is at full back, but he does definitely have the athleticism to play further out the field. We know he plays in the midfield area for Corofin in Gaelic football. And I wonder anyway, does he have the athleticism? We know he probably does to do the same in hurling.
Yeah, I thought that was a really interesting aspect. Kind of, he kind of had a tough enough day, and the first week back, he looked kind of a bit rusty, kind of coming back in, but he looked a whole lot better this week. Like McInerney went back into fullback, and then that freed him out to go. And I was kind of, I suppose it's a rare sight to see Dahi Burke knocking over a point, but anyway, we got to see it this week. So yeah, his positioning will certainly be interesting as the year goes on, really. And like you were talking about that Galway forward line, they're the two kind of hard working wing forwards and Loftus and Adrian Toohey, and then you've Colin Mannion with Canning around as well, and then an inside forward line of Concannon, Whelan and Conor Cooney. So like that's a ridiculously talented forward line, and I think has to be probably considered one of the most talented that there is like in the entire country at the moment.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And if that wasn't even good enough on its own, Evan Nyland comes on in the second
Yep.
half
Yep.
and
Four
scores 4 points
points.
from
Yeah.
play. Unbelievable performance from him. He's such a talented player. I think he's the future of Galway hurling, and I think he might be a massive part of the present. I think to be honest, if Galway are going to win the All Ireland this year, I think this fella should be a starter for them.
Yep, absolutely. And that's not where they haven't even mentioned the likes of Joseph Cooney yet. So like there's so many options up front for Galway, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see kind of what they settle on. Looking forward, if Shane O'Neill wants to kind of keep two hard-working wing forwards in Loftus and Toohey in those positions, or will he maybe try and incorporate an Ireland into a team as well?
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about that. Interestingly for Waterford, they looked a little bit exposed at the back again. Austin Gleeson was at centre half back once again, but it wasn't as solid as it was, particularly against Limerick this time.
Yeah, I think it was kind of, this was like back to the first week against Cork when they they allowed the opposition to just kind of walk through again. Gleeson kind of he was like he the previous week he'd looked kind of much more assured and more of a presence in centre half back, but kind of back to the same problems with no De Burka here now. That Waterford do need to try and find a centre half back fairly quick, and it's yet to be seen if Austin Gleeson can be the answer there this year. Maybe perhaps his best position is still up in centre half forward line. So yeah, I'd be curious to think if would maybe Kevin Moran be the answer to be a kind of fill the void for as long as De Burke is out injured, maybe.
Yeah, no, he'd definitely be an interesting candidate because obviously when it comes to experience, this guy has it in spades, and he's been around the block for Waterford. He's played with some of the best hurlers Waterford have ever produced, the likes of John Milan and so on. And he's been as close to winning an All Ireland for Waterford as they've ever been. Yeah, I think, in my opinion, I think Gleeson is the best candidate right now to play centre half back for Waterford, but I think I would be putting Calum Lyons on the right side of him. I would be putting Kevin Moran on the left side of him to try and strengthen up the wings of the half back line so that Gleeson maybe can cover a bit more and just sit there and hold the defence and not try and do too much from centre half back, because then maybe he can just focus on shoring up the defence rather than being like a Declan Hannon, like a playmaker style. I think Waterford just need to stick to basics and not let teams run through them like Galway did.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be curious though to see if maybe if Liam Cahill does try Kevin Moran back in centre half back and then have Calum Lyons and maybe Irla Daly beside him, and that might be able to free Gleeson back up to the half forward line, probably where he's at his best. So I'm interested to see kind of what way Waterford are going to go about it. But yeah, it is definitely something that they're going to have to hope improve significantly with, like, the first round of Munster against Clare not too far away.
Yeah, and it would be very interesting to see how they go about that game. It would be very interesting to see how Galway get on in Leinster as well. But there's no doubt that this game, in my opinion, was the game of the weekend. And yeah, what more can you ask for from a game of hurling?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought absolutely fantastic. And just brief last point, kind of, I thought it was really interesting to see Joe Canning in full forward for. I know we've briefly touched on it already, but we haven't seen him play like a considerable amount of game time in that position kind of in a long time, really, nearly going back to about 2008 when you're last thinking about it. So, and he just looked, he was consistently out in front of Conor Prunty, scored a fair few, 1-4 I think it was from play, and he set up 2 goals as well with assists too. So he caused absolute havoc in there, and it's really interesting to see if Shane O'Neill will be looking to maybe rotate the team a bit and maybe send Canning into that full forward position for about 15-20 minutes in the game.
Yeah, that would be fascinating to me to see. And I think the key reason, in my opinion, along with Canning being an unbelievable hurler that he was brought around the middle, was because he needed to strengthen up the middle of the field, because Galway didn't have, in my opinion, the hurlers that they have now back then, particularly around 2012 and they're under Anthony Cunningham. They were still, relying a lot on the likes of Irla Tanyan, and they were bringing Damien Hayes out from the corner to wing forward. They were bringing Joe Canning out from full forward to the half forward line as well. Even though he still had 14 on his back then, he was carrying Galway on his own, and that could take a toll on him. But now he can kind of just play full forward. He can, because Galway have the hurlers out there now. They have the likes of Cathal Mannion, they have the likes of Evan Nyland, they have the likes of David Burke, Dahi Burke, Pádraig Mannion. They don't need Joe Canning around there, so maybe Joe Canning can actually settle down a full forward. And if he can settle down a full forward, there's no argument to say he won't be the most dangerous full forward in the country this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm thinking back to, there was one point at one stage when long ball came in and he got out in front of Prunty to win a ball. He'd no right to win, and then right out on the side and straight over the bar. So he's still, like, the talent levels he has are ridiculous. Another sideline cuts from about 60 yards out straight over the bar. I think if we can get to see him stay fit this year, I think the prospect of him in full forward could be really, really interesting.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about that. Okay, so that's our coverage of the Galway versus Waterford game done and dusted. We'll come back with our coverage of the Antrim against Wexford game next.